The Bakewell Tart is a classic British dessert, but at its essence it's simply a frangipane tart, which is found all over the world in French bakeries and patisseries. In this case, the Bakewell Tart originated from a town of the same name in Derbyshire, England, and what better town name could you have for somewhere famous for producing baked goods than Bakewell? It is in itself a variation of a rough puff based Bakewell pudding, and that consists of rough puff pastry, then some jam, and then something between a frangipane and an almond custard that sits on top. Or perhaps that sits under the jam. There's only 3 or 4 recipes I can find online, and they all seem to contradict each other. Well, fortunately for me, the Bakewell Tart is a lot less controversial, and unless you're expecting a Mr. Kipling-esque icing sugar covered glacé cherry adorned imposter, then this video will show you how to do a very classic and really delicious Bakewell Tart. So I'm using pastry I'd made already, but you can go ahead and either use shop bought pastry or head over to my video linked above now for the custard tart, where I'll show you my method for making pastry at home. When rolling out the pastry, it's important to turn it about 1/8 of a turn each time to make sure that you maintain that round shape as you roll. Once you've got the pastry to a thickness of 2 to 3 millimeters, you can roll it onto your rolling pin and then transfer it into your tin. Make sure the pastry sits flush with the corners of the tin, because if there's any gap, then the pastry will tend to shrink in the oven. The best way to do this is to push the pastry back towards the centre of the tin, as I'm doing now, and then use your forefinger or a dusted piece of excess pastry to push that pastry edge right up against the edge of the tin. To get a really light and airy frangipane, you need to use room temperature butter and sugar. First combine together with a spatula or a wooden spoon, before using an electric whisk or a stand mixer to whisk it until it's doubled in volume and very light, pale and fluffy. This can take about 10 minutes, and be sure to scrape down the sides every now and then to make sure it's combined evenly. With your sugar and butter combined, you can now start to add the eggs and your almond extract and your vanilla extract. Make sure the eggs are also at room temperature, as this will help prevent the mixture from splitting. Keep whisking these in until the mixture is even more light and airy, and then you can start to fold in your ground almonds in about 3 inclusions, taking care not to lose too much volume out of the mixture. Once you know how to make frangipane, you can make so many different types of tarts. You can make a poached pear tart, you can make an apple tart, or any other stone fruit, plums, apricots, they all work really well. So this is a really useful base recipe to have. It's important to blind bake the pastry, which is to bake the pastry first without the filling in it, to ensure that you get a crisp bottom to your pastry shell rather than a soggy one. Now to do this you need to fill the pastry with some sort of weight, usually rice or lentils or baking beans. And so first you need to cover the pastry with a piece of parchment paper to stop that rice or baking beans sticking to the pastry. You can just scrunch up a piece of parchment paper, or you can make a cartouche as I've done here. If you're regularly making tarts in the same size case, then it's useful to have a piece of parchment that you can just use over and over again. Once the base of the tart shell doesn't look shiny or greasy anymore, then you can take out all the baking beans and the parchment and return it to the oven for another 10 to 15 minutes. Pricking some holes in the bottom with a fork can help prevent the base from rising up as it cooks. Now the thing about cooking at home is it's all about making substitutions and changing things up to accommodate what you've got in your pantry. And in this case, instead of going for the classic raspberry jam base, I'm going to use blackberry jam, which I made in a previous video. First you want to spread a liberal amount of the jam across the whole base of the tart, before filling the tart to the rim with the frangipane and then some flaked almonds. Bake it in the oven until it's golden brown and a skewer comes out clean. Allow the tart to come to room temperature before trimming off the excess pastry and removing the tart from the tin. Then all that's left to do is to dust it with a little icing sugar and serve it with a dollop of whipped cream. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button and consider subscribing for more recipes and other food content. See you next time.